But before I tell you this tale, I feel the need to express that as an American who has lived in Germany since 2001, I want to make it clear that this story is in no way normal nor a reflection of how your average German behaves. At the end of this video, I actually have a few specific questions, specifically for my German viewers. But first, allow me to introduce our main characters, if you will, in the hopes that it'll help you keep them straight as I tell this twisted tale. Our main character will be known as Emmitt. Other characters important to this tale, key players if you will, would be a worker we're going to call Obit, and a Nazi main creator who we will refer to as Moth. And they are members of what is known as the Gross Crew. Reference will also be made to some squirrely management types who played vital yet very unfortunate roles in this shameful story. Got it? Good. So our story begins with Emmitt. Emmitt is just a single mom looking to pay her bills who thought she found a pretty interesting job. You see, Emmitt was sent to run a shop that had existed in the same location for somewhere around 10 years. Emmitt was excited and saw so many possibilities to build great customer relationships with what should be a well-established customer base. After all those years in that same location, Emmitt thought all she would have to do is really maintain that and make it grow. And Emmitt was good at making sales grow. Oh, but soon Emmitt's expectations would all be crushed. Although it should be noted that from the get-go, Emmitt noticed a lot of what you could call odd things about this company. But Emmitt liked odd things. And she didn't let odd things scare her away without further investigation. And Emmitt loved a challenge. And so a challenge Emmitt got. I mean, upon arrival, she was greeted by a giant gaping hole in the ceiling caused by water damage right at the entrance over products, and it had cut off electricity over products displayed, and even as I stated, the entrance and, the shop window. You don't really need lighting to display products properly, right? But oh, that wasn't it. That water damage, it had caused a mess. I mean, stains on the walls, stains on the floor. But quite honestly, Emmitt quickly realized those stains on the floor weren't as worrisome as the cracks and gaping holes that the customers were tripping over. Dirt, dust, filth, just filth. Unspeakable things were everywhere. And Emmitt spent her first 48 hours in that shop, cleaning and painting over, for example, pee-pee and poo-poo smears on the walls in the bathrooms, as well as a booger collection near one of the doors, all in the bathroom used by employees and customers for, 10 years? Disgusting. Emmitt was starting to feel a little bit tricked in what she was told was the job description for this job. Nonetheless, Emmitt was excited to meet her customers. The ones she had already met in preparation for this job had really impressed her as a bunch of interesting, smart, and creative folks. Well, Emmitt couldn't wait to just find more and collect them all like Pokemon. Unfortunately for Emmitt, she was handed along with this shop also a team that was less than enthusiastic about working, less enthusiastic about doing their job, and more interested in getting their hands on the products that Emmitt was trying to sell. Spoiler alert, that issue would later prove to be the root of so many issues in this company. But Emmitt tried to work with what she was handed. But what Emmitt quickly learned was that there was a sort of giant rain cloud of bitterness that hung over this shop. Bitterness, anger, resentment, all for the very same company that all those very same people wanted and craved to get their hands on the products of or be a part of and work for. Oh, but first we gotta back it up to the clear issues from the get-go. You see, upon arrival, Emmitt was taken by her predecessor, the person that was running this shop before her. Well, he took her to a back room where he stored products that should have been destroyed or sent back to the company as per company policy. But he made an awkward statement before they entered this room and Emmitt found out what was in it. And that awkward statement was something like,
You know our secret deal, right?
and by our, he meant some or most of the managers working in this position in this company. Well, Emmitt, being an outsider and new to this whole scene, just wanted to be accepted, was also a tad curious, and decided to just keep it cool and was like, "Of course I know about the secret deal," she said. And that's where he explained that all of these items he had collected here, he handed out as gifts and rewards. And he encouraged Emmitt to take whatever you want. The company will never know. But still felt the need to warn her. Technically, we shouldn't do this, so when upper management comes around, make sure you have it hidden. That's right. He continued on.
We shouldn't do it, but we all do it.
And I know some of you are watching this and you're thinking, oh, that's cool, free stuff. Unfortunately for Emmitt, who was trying to do a job in order to pay her bills, this had created an atmosphere where stealing was normal and people expected free items constantly. And a lot of other things that basically Emmitt could have been fired for. Emmitt has bills to pay. So Emmitt got to work, doing sales, doing recruitment, management, making plans, cleaning. So much cleaning. But she also did this crazy thing where she expected her workers to work. And as she would do that, her workers would attempt to explain to her that that was pointless for this company. They made it clear that they were pretty much just there for the free items and to abuse their rebates. They also didn't hesitate to make it clear the mass amount of managers that had been in and out of that shop, and reminded Emmitt that she would probably be fired as well soon because that's what this company does. Not a great beginning for Emmitt here, right? So it would seem Emmitt had a lot of changes to make. Because from her knowledge and her background in this business, this shop was currently and had been for a long time pretty much a flaming locomotive on the train tracks leading directly to the gates of hell. But you know, change doesn't always come easy, and sometimes people really fight against it. So when the free handouts stopped, stealing and abuse of rebates was called out for what it was, and an attempt was made to clean everything up and recruit new customers, make everybody feel welcome and comfortable in there. However, when Emmitt attempted all of this, Emmitt was met with a protest. One of these workers that Emmitt had inherited informed her on one of the few occasions that he would actually even talk to her that what she was doing here was pointless. It won't work, he said. He'd seen way more than a handful of managers come and go, he said. And he grunted out something like, "The company doesn't care," sad tear. Now, this particular worker, who we'll call Obit, really was annoyed that Emmitt expected him to work when he was on the clock. He just wanted to get free things and chill with his gross crew, Emmitt. He also made it very clear that he was not willing to speak to female customers, and limited his communication with Emmitt, his manager, to mostly shoulder shrugs and grunts. Obit was there for the products and for his gross crew. For years, Obit and his crew had used this facility to get cheap and free products, but also to have at least weekly these little weird private parties that involved lots of donor eating, pizza leaving, and generally leaving scraps, boxes, wrappers, drool, crumbs. And did I mention the booger collection? The pee and poop stains? All for Emmitt to clean up. Emmitt was beginning to wonder if she was even really working in retail anymore here. This was all really weird. So clearly, Obit had to be let go for a variety of reasons. And before Emmitt knew what was going on, the gross crew had begun a full-on protest against her being in that shop. Alas, with Emmitt's background in this profession, she knew what she had to do to get this shop up and running both for the company and the community. It wasn't rocket science. She'd done it before. If I ask, they will come, she thought. And so recruitment began. And so, with Emmitt's strange habit of talking to strangers in a friendly tone, she began recruiting new people into that shop. And with her ridiculous work ethic, she also began fixing up that shop. She was making progress in improving both the appearance and the community, everything that lingered there often. Emmitt was really delighted with the mass amounts of interesting customers that she met. Oh, but every once in a while she would hear something, because people talk. And sure enough, as Emmitt's relationships grew stronger with her customers, some felt the need to reveal to her that they too had encountered or heard about a protest going on about her behind her friendly back. Some customers felt the need to warn her that there was a group of people that wanted her out of this job and were screaming about it loudly, both around town and online. Some of these customers, well aware of the history of this shop and its total inability to keep a manager there for a longer period of time, worried that this little bullying mob may be the reason that Emmitt's now gets removed. And Emmitt's felt like she was in high school again. Emmitt's did not expect any of this, from the filth to the fury, when she took this job. So Emmitt dug in a little bit and got confirmation that, in fact, this gross crew was going around towns and spouting off loudly to anybody that would listen that they shouldn't shop at Emmitt's shop. Emmitt spoke with one of the shop owners, for example, right around the corner from her shop that also shared customers with her shop. And yeah, he confirmed that the gross crew was going around town trying to prevent business in her shop and people from buying from her, but also very clearly slandering Emmitt's name. And as absurd as this entire situation seemed to Emmitt, she knew this could get bad and decided to make contact with her so-called support system at the company. However, due to a case of absolute incompetence, they were unable to do the job of supporting Emmitt. And so there's a protest. It wasn't enough that the shop was physically run down. Nope. It wasn't enough that 80-some% of the customers that walked into the shop were at the very least cynical with their attitude towards the company or had some bizarre love-hate, heavy-on-the-hate relationship with the company. Emmitt now had some full-grown, what she could only describe as man-children, angry that she was not providing them with stolen items, and infuriated that she was now running this shop to look and act like a shop, which included it no longer being full of food boxes, wrappers, booger collections, poop stains, and even worse, Emmitt had opened up the Gross Crew's private clubhouse to the general public. I mean, Emmitt was inviting people into the shop that the Gross Crew actively scared out for years. Humans like females and children's, a variety of races, beliefs, and ages and such. Emmitt had the gall to proclaim everyone was welcome, and the Gross Crew was pissed. Well, luckily for Emmitt, she was building some great customer relationships in that shop. She had a beautiful community blossoming, full of people that both liked her and the atmosphere that she had created there. And Emmitt just thought, just keep doing what you're doing. You know how to treat people, you know what works, and anybody that knows you will realize what this childish bullshit gossip is if they should hear it. They'll realize it's childish gossip bullshit. And Emmitt tried to keep her eye on the ball, and little by little kept seeing positive results. Everything was growing. But that's when the Gross Crew decided to take their bullying to another level. A level that I'll dare say nobody should stoop to, especially not a German in the 21st century. She was never expecting something like this to happen at a job. You see, that former worker, Emmitt, he had this little server on a platform called TeamSpeak or something like that. He would gather there with not just his gross crew, but quite a few customers from the shop that Emmitt's was attempting to run. He would gather there with these people and they would chat on his chat server. And yeah, many witnessed a lot of flat-out slander against Emmitt's. Just a lot of shit talking. But one kind, young German gentleman was concerned and decided to talk to Emmitt, because what he saw was just not right on so many levels and possibly illegal. So it would seem that one member of the gross crew, somebody that we'll refer to as Moth now, it would seem Moth decided to possibly dig into what was maybe his great-grandfather's photo collection. Basically, he took a picture from the 40s in Germany, where essentially you see Nazi soldiers in front of a shop and they're posting a sign on it to inform the public that they shouldn't buy from Jewish people. Yeah, so Moth gets the bright idea to modify the picture, change it up a little bit. And instead of saying don't purchase from Jewish people, he changed it to don't purchase from Emmitt. Left in the Nazi soldiers and such, of course. This garbage human being took literal Nazi propaganda to use against a single mom in the goal of bullying her out of her job. Modern day Germany. In modern day Germany, Moth thought that would be the appropriate name to create and share in a chat room. A chat room full of other Germans, some of which were decent human beings who also actually liked Emmitt, but also were well aware of their history and that it's not a joke. Quite a few customers thought this was all going a little too far. So did Emmitt. Emmitt was shocked and angry in disbelief. Disbelief that in this day and age, a well-educated German in their 20s, or young 20s, whatever, would think that that was a good idea. Stealing from the shop wasn't enough. Announcing in local shops amongst strangers that people shouldn't shop from Emmitt's shop wasn't enough. Telling anybody that would listen that Emmitt's was horrible wasn't enough. Stalking, vandalizing, and littering around Emmitt's shop wasn't enough. Gossiping with Emmitt's co-workers like teenage girls with the goal of trying to get her fired wasn't enough. No, it wasn't enough. The gross crew thought what this bullying needs, a little bit of Nazi propaganda. So Emmitt was facing and dealing with a lot of things here alone. It was all becoming too much. And even though it was really starting to feel like everything she was told in the job description of this job was an absolute lie, she once again proceeded to attempt to go through the proper venues one should go through in business. She once again reached out to her superiors or her dedicated support team at this company. Unfortunately, time and time again, they would prove themselves to not be superior nor be able to support Emmitt. Quite the opposite. They often made a job more difficult. Spoiler alert, it would take some time, but Emmitt would figure out it's because those two that she had to turn to for support were, unfortunately, more like the gross crew. Their personality types and their motivation for that job were the root of many problems in that company. Sadly, in the end, it would seem either by their actions or absolute inaction in this situation would ultimately help the bullies, the gross crew who find anti-Semitism funny. But Emmitt's documented names, dates, incidences, things said, and it's tried to explain that it should be sort of important for the company to know the history, what's been going on here, where this weird-ass protest comes from in the first place, where these childish actions and attitudes all began. Emmitt had never seen anything like this before. A shop full of people that loved the products and hated the company. Like, literally, often openly talked about how they thought they were, like, evil capitalist pigs. Emmitt felt from a business perspective, this company needed to know about the history, the bitterness, so they wouldn't repeat it. And yeah, Emmitt naively did hope for a little bit of support in regards to the bullying from the gross crew. But most importantly, her work and background told her that if she didn't talk about this, It was going to continue, and someone else was going to go through all of the hell that she did. Emmitt didn't want that responsibility on her head, so she tried to fix things. Because you see, folks, this all caused a lot of very, very unnecessary stress that has an effect on your personal life and health, and no job is worth that, ever. Unfortunately, again, heavily afflicted with incompetence and bad attitudes, the two squirrely and worthless gentlemen that she was to turn to for support in this tricky situation dropped the ball. They were given names, they were told about the shop's history, told about the stealing, abusing of rebates, the free handouts, the attempts to exclude people from the shop, the mobbing, the slander, the stalking, the harassment, and oh yes, the use of Nazi propaganda in an attempt to make Emmitt lose her job. Most of this, as usual, was not very interesting to them. Looking back, perhaps Emmitt should have grabbed one of the products in her shop and dangled it in front of their faces so that they really would have paid attention. But then again, I mean, that wouldn't teach them about business. I digress. They did what they always did, which was just try to turn it all into Emmitt's responsibility, and they made it pretty clear they weren't really interested. However, Emmitt pushed on, reminded them of the sad history here in Germany, how offensive anti-Semitism is. But Emmitt also pushed a little further and reminded them of laws in this country she was working in regards to bullying and use of Nazi propaganda, for example. Well then, at least one of them pretended to be slightly interested. And Emmitt was really glad that he seemed slightly interested, because she informed him that some of these dudes in this gross crew are trying really hard to get job positions in this company so that they can hold on to this rebate and keep getting their hands on free items. And even though it took multiple times bringing it up, multiple times requesting assistance, eventually Emmitt was told by one of these squirrely little management types that he would get this handled. This is not acceptable. These types of people can't work for this company. However, it wouldn't take long until word would get back to Emmitt that there were conversations, in fact, going on still about her in other shops from this company. Business colleagues confirming that the gross crew was indeed traveling around, reaching out, even trying to get jobs, and some got jobs. And every time they were entering these shops, they were talking about what a horrible job Emmitt was doing and what a horrible human being Emmitt was. In reality, it was kind of funny, because Emmitt's shop was thriving. And after not so long, Emmitt found out that Moth, the incel that made the Nazi post, well, he was in fact working for this company. And even though his actions and his intentions were all named and all put out on the table, he did not get fired from it. Emmitt didn't think it was a coincidence either that the particular shop that Moth, the Nazi meme creator, the particular shop that he ended up working with was actually located not too far from one of these squirrely management teams who had in fact said he would fire that guy. But he didn't. Oh, and Emmitt, the ex-worker who allowed Nazi bullying going on his server, proudly displayed it for the community to see. Yeah, the guy that was pissed he wasn't getting free stuff. Well, that guy. Well, Emmitt would find out not long after she had informed her little support system about all of these bullying shenanigans that he who was abusing his rebate and stealing, well, he was given a job at a shop, yes, from this company nearby. After several conversations with a variety of business colleagues, it would be revealed to Emmitt that every single thing that her squirrely management support team had told her that they would do to support her and correct a lot of these things going on were absolute and utter lies. In fact, ultimately, one could say that they directly assisted the company in actually rewarding neo-Nazi bullying behavior with paychecks, rather than doing their damn job. Emmitt was stone cold stunned once again. She realized all her blood, sweat, and tears she invested in that job was for nothing. And all the time, energy, and knowledge she invested to getting to the root of all of the problems, it was all wasted time. Because the root of all the problems went all the way to the damn top. Over and over and over again, when Emmitt would reach out for support for something within that company, instead of finding a person in that position that knew how to do that position, that job, instead, Emmitt would find people that were in that position because they were either motivated to get their hands on more products or wanted what they considered some kind of weird pride to say that they worked for this company, or they were somebody like that bro. Big bro atmosphere at this place. And what Emmitt could only describe as sort of a bro and groupie business hiring concept. Hire people you know you can take advantage of and won't complain. Not to mention, make a slight profit off from the get-go. Yeah, so if you were looking for a happy ending to this story, there isn't one. And in some ways, it's not fully over. That was just the beginning. Just the tip of the iceberg of truly unbelievable ridiculousness that Emmitt would encounter with that company. So let's just say, to be continued on this one. But I'm really interested to hear in the comments how you would have handled this situation. And has anybody ever tried to bully you out of a job? And if you're German, specifically, just because you have a good feel on how this culture and laws and everything works. If you're German specifically, I want to know, how would you have handled this? And what would you have done if you had known Emmitt? Would you have told her? Would you have told her about the bullying, the mobbing going on behind her back? Would you too have gone to the proper levels within the business, or would you have gone straight to a lawyer or the police? I'm really looking forward this time to hearing your thoughts and opinions on this. Don't forget to click like and subscribe if you're new. I really thank you all for watching, and a big shout out and a whole lot of love to my members. And until we meet again, y'all take care of yourself.